You think that front door is going to protect you when civilization collapses? Spoiler, it won't. When the supermarkets are empty and the police cease to exist, that lock you bought on sale will last exactly 15 seconds against someone truly motivated. And that nice neighbor who always waves. He knows exactly where you keep your food. He saw you coming back from Costco with those huge boxes. He's counting the days. But before you transform your house into a medieval fortress, and yes, we'll get there including the part about where to get barbed wire without raising suspicion, I need you to understand something crucial that will save your life in step 3. Something that 90% of people who prepare bunkers completely forget. But hold on. We're going to build this the right way. Oh, and since we're talking about civilizational collapse, I made a complete video about what to do in the first 72 hours of a total blackout. Not that 2-hour blackout that the electric company fixes, the kind of blackout that doesn't come back, the kind where you realize on the 3rd day that maybe it won't ever come back. Link pinned in the first comment. Watch it after you finish this, if you're going to finish it, of course. If you survive the next 20 minutes of reading without questioning your life choices, leave a like. Or don't. Maybe you'd rather wait for the apocalypse to arrive to discover you were wrong. Subscribe if you want to stay alive, or at least understand why you're going to die. Comments are welcome, especially if you think you have a better plan. I'll read them from my bunker while you're being looted. Step 1. Predator psychology or why you're an easy prey. Let's start with an uncomfortable truth. You're not preparing your house against normal thieves. You're preparing against desperate people. People who haven't eaten in 3 days. People who heard their children crying from hunger. People who lost everything and have absolutely nothing to lose. And these people are infinitely more dangerous than any common criminal. Because they're not looking for your PlayStation, they're looking for your rice. The first rule of apocalyptic fortification is invisibility, not defense. Invisibility. Think of it this way. A medieval castle was impressive. High walls, towers, flags. But you know what a castle also was? A giant advertisement saying, hey, there's food and resources in here. All that architectural effort was necessary because everyone already knew there were valuable things inside. You don't have an army of archers. You have, at most, a shotgun and questionable nerves. So here's your first DIY step. Make your house look already looted. Seriously. Break a window. Leave the door ajar. Scatter trash in the yard. Put graffiti on the wall saying already empty or nitrogen monoxide food. If you have time and zero artistic talent, just smear something that looks like blood at the entrance. Ketchup works. Red paint mixed with coffee too. Visually, imagine a house in Detroit after 2008. Broken windows, tall grass, total air of abandonment. Now compare it to the house next door, with perfect lawn and intact windows. Which one would you invade first if you were starving? Exactly. But here's the trick that separates amateurs from survivors. You're going to create this illusion only on the outside. Inside, you're going to build layers of defense that would make a military engineer cry with pride. And this brings us to the next step, where you're going to learn something about doors that not even the hardware store salesman knows, something that will make all the difference when someone tries to break into your house at 3 in the morning. But before we continue, understand, if someone really wants to get in, eventually they will. Firefighters enter locked houses into minutes. The question isn't to create an impenetrable fortress. The question is to make invading your house so difficult, so noisy and so dangerous that the looters simply decide to try the neighbor's house. Because in the apocalypse, you don't need to be invincible, you just need to be harder than the alternative. Step 2. Door engineering, or how that lock is a joke. Your front door is made of hollow wood. And hope, I'll prove it, knock on it. Heard that hollow sound? It's because there's literally air inside. It's basically sophisticated cardboard with a layer of paint, a strong kick at any point near the lock, and it opens like an invitation. Standard residential doors were designed to prevent your mother-in-law from entering without knocking, not to resist someone truly determined. So let's fix this. What you need: door reinforcement bars, night lock or similar, $80, 154 screw security hinges, $40 per pair steel plate for door frame, $603 inch screws, not those ridiculous ones that come from factory, $15. Optional but recommended, metal plate for internal door reinforcement, $100 to $200. How to do it. First, remove those pathetic half-inch screws holding your hinges, all of them. Replace with 3-inch screws that go through the frame and enter directly into the wall structure. Not the decorative molding, the structure. You want tearing out your door to require demolishing the entire wall. Second, install the steel plate on the frame where the lock fits. That's soft wood, now it's steel. Good luck kicking steel. Third, and pay attention, because here's the secret I promised. Install a horizontal reinforcement bar that goes from the door to the opposite wall, not just a lock, a bar, like those you see in medieval movies, but 21st century version. The night lock installs on the floor and creates an angle that makes it physically impossible to push the door inward. Basic physics, oblique angles distribute force. You're creating an inverted lever. Compare visually, normal door versus bank vault door. The difference isn't thickness, it's the locking system, multiple contact points, force distribution. Redundancy, what can kill you? Irony, reinforcing the front door so much that you can't get out quickly if there's fire. Or invasion through the window. Or from the back. Because you spent all your time and money on the front door and forgot that houses have other holes. And here's something you'll discover in the next step. It doesn't matter how strong your door is if your walls are drywall. But that's a discussion for a bit later, when we talk about the second most common mistake of preppers. The first being building obvious defenses that attract attention. For now, your doors are solid, noisy to break, time-consuming to defeat. Next step, windows and why you should consider them not as sources of light, but as polite invitations for invasion. Step 3, the window problem and the solution. No one wants to hear windows are beautiful. They bring natural light, ventilation, connection to the outside world. They make your house seem less like a prison and more like a home. They're absolutely wonderful in times of peace. In the apocalypse, windows are the architectural equivalent of leaving the door open with a sign saying "Come in. We're home." Here's the truth that architects don't mention. Glass is organized melted sand. It's fragile by design. Even that safety glass tempered that shatters into 1,000 safe little pieces. It shatters. The key word is shatter. And laminated glass, that one with film in the middle, takes 15 seconds longer to break. Congratulations, you gained 15 seconds. Option 1, the civilized solution. That doesn't work. Window bars. Every Brazilian knows them. Problem, bars announce theirs. Something here worth protecting. Remember the invisibility rule? You just violated it. Besides, bars can be cut with an angle grinder in less than a minute. That noise. In the chaos of a social collapse, no one comes to investigate. Option 2, the paranoid solution that works but has a cost. You're going to transform your windows into walls. Not aesthetically, structurally. From the inside. What you need: 18mm marine plywood sheets, piano hinges long, metal ones, sturdy drawer latches, 2-inch screws optional, polycarbonate plates very expensive, but unbreakable. How to do it: measure each window, cut plywood to exact size plus 10 centimeters on each side. You're going to fix this panel not on the window frame, but on the wall around it. Why? Because frames get torn out, walls don't. Install piano hinges on one side. This allows you to open the protection during the day to have light and ventilation, and close at night or when necessary. Think of medieval shutters. But inside the house, close them with multiple drawer latches, those that would require a screwdriver to open. For ground floor or accessible windows, add a polycarbonate layer between the glass and the plywood. Polycarbonate is what they make riot shields from. Doesn't break, doesn't crack easily. It's expensive as plastic surgery, but it works. Compare window with curtain versus window with 18mm solid wood panel reinforced by screws and structural wall. One breaks with a rock. The other requires tools, time, and lots of noise. What can kill you? Fire. Again, you're creating a box. Boxes are great for security and terrible for evacuation. If someone decides they can't get in and throws a Molotov cocktail through the window, yes, this happens. You have seconds to get out. Make sure at least one window in the back has quick opening, or accept that your fortress might become your tomb. And here's what I almost forgot to mention, and it is crucial. There is no point in strengthening doors and windows if you have a colonial tile roof that someone can simply remove and enter through the attic. But we'll talk about unconventional access points in a bit. First, we need to solve the noise problem, because remember what I said about making invasion noisy? That's the next level. Step 4, the weapon you didn't know you had: primitive alarm systems. Forget those sophisticated electronic alarms. When the power grid falls, and it will fall, your $1,500 security system becomes an expensive ornament. You can't eat motion sensors. Backup batteries last a week if you're lucky. After that, silence. But you know what doesn't need electricity? Basic physics, mechanical noise. Things that go clang when someone touches them. Let's go back to medieval basics, but with Brazilian style. What you need: aluminum can soda, beer. You'll drink them before even emptying them. Fishing line 0.60 millimeters nylon, $8 per roll. Small bells or jingles, $10 per dozen. Thumbtacks or small nails, rocks or metal nuts to put inside the cans. How to do it: create trip wires, trap wires, not to hurt yet but to alert. Stretch fishing line 15 centimeters off the ground along the entire interior perimeter of the house, especially near doors and windows. Tie cans full of rocks or nuts to this line. When someone trips, and they will trip because they can't see transparent fishing line in the dark, the cans fall and make a noise that wakes the dead. Literally. It's deafening in a silent environment at 3 in the morning. Advanced variation: hang bells on doors and windows, not on the obvious outside, but inside. At the top of the frame, when the door opens. The bells ring. Simple, effective, used for literally 1,000 years. Compare visually your silent house versus a construction materials warehouse full of chains and metal. Which is easier to invade silently? Now multiply this. Hallways with lines, rooms with bells, stairs with cans on each step. You know where to step. Invaders don't. You're transforming your house into a sound trap, not impenetrable, but noisy as a heavy metal concert. And here's the psychological trick: noise doesn't just alert you, it terrorizes the invader. Imagine you're in a dark place, tense, stealing food that could mean your survival. And suddenly clang, 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 ding, 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 crash. Your heart races. You don't know if it's a trap, if someone's awake, if there are weapons pointed at you. Most people will run. And those who don't run, those are your next problem. What can kill you? You. Forgetting where you place your own traps and tripping on them at 2 in the morning. When you go to the bathroom, mark everything, memorize the layout, or use a red flashlight which doesn't destroy night vision to map the safe path. But this brings us to a deeper question we'll explore in the next step. What do you do when someone really manages to get past all of this? When reinforced doors, armored windows, and primitive alarms weren't enough. Because real security isn't avoiding invasion. It's having layers, redundancies, plans B, C, and D, and a last line of defense that most people never consider. Step 5. Blind spots and the anatomy of invasion. You did everything right so far. Reinforced door, armored windows, noisy alarms. Your house looks looted from the outside, but is a fortress inside. You're feeling confident, maybe even a little proud. Finally, you think you're prepared, and then someone enters through the roof, or through the garage, or through that little bathroom window you thought was too small to matter, or through the service door you completely forgot existed. Let's talk about blind spots. ROOF, colonial tiles, can be removed silently, one by one. Fiber cement tiles, a hammer solves it. And then the invader is in your attic, walking between the beams, looking for the hatch or simply breaking the plaster ceiling to fall into your living room. Solution: lock the hatch from inside with a padlock. Reinforce the ceiling in critical areas with additional boards. Or, and this is radical, place noisy objects in the attic. Empty bottles, cans, anything that makes noise if someone steps on it. You can't reinforce the entire roof, but you can make it noisy. Garage, that automatic aluminum door, it's made of aluminum. One of the weakest metals that exists, can be cut with industrial tin snips. Solution: treat the internal door between garage and house as your real front door. Apply everything you did to the main door here. Lock from inside with bar. Reinforce. Transform into bunker. Because if someone enters the garage, you want them to stop there. Small windows, no one can fit through here, is the last thought of many people before being surprised by a skinny, desperate teenager. Humans can pass through surprisingly small spaces when motivated. 40 centimeters opening, enough. Solution: permanent bars welded inside the frame, not those removable decorative ones, welded. Or fill the space with glass blocks, those translucent glass bricks. Let light in. Don't let humans in. Service, back doors, everyone focuses on the front. Thieves have known this for decades. Solution: same reinforcements as the main door, no exceptions. No, nobody uses this one. In the apocalypse, every entrance is used. Compare mentally, medieval castle, high walls in front, but always had that little back gate for supplies, and it was always the weak point. It's always the weak point. Don't have weak points. By the way, since you Ray thinking about weak points, in the blackout video I mentioned, link in the first pinned comment, I cover something that 90% of people forget. What happens to your frozen food when the power goes out and doesn't come back? And no, it's not just it thaws. It's worse. Much worse. And there's a 30-second trick that can save weeks of supplies. But you need to do it before. Obviously. What can kill you? Spending so much time fortifying that you forget to stock water or food. Or medicine. Defense is important, but it's not everything. You can have the safest house in the world and still die of dehydration in 3 days. And this brings us to the final step. What you're really protecting and why. Because here's something no one wants to admit. Eventually, you'll have to leave. To get supplies, to check on neighbors, to simply not go crazy inside a sealed box. And when you leave, your empty fortress is just an empty box with things inside. Real security isn't architectural. It's communal, but that's a discussion for the closing. For now, let's go to the final step. What to do when, despite everything, someone gets in. Step 6. Contingency plan when everything goes wrong. Here's the truth no one wants to hear. If someone really wants to enter your house and has enough time, tools, and determination, they will succeed. All those layers of defense you built aren't to prevent invasion. They're to delay it, to make it noisy, to give you time to wake up, get organized, and execute your contingency plan. So what's your contingency plan? Option 1. SAFE room, an internal room, without windows. With reinforced door, your final redoubt, you hear the alarms, run there with your family. Lock from inside. And wait, ideally, this room has water gallons, 5 gallons minimum, non-perishable food, cereal, bars, canned goods, radio communicator or walkie-talkie. Weapon. If you have one and know how to use it, we'll talk about this in a bit. First aid flashlight. Important documents in waterproof folder. You're not planning to stay there a week. You're planning to stay a few hours until it is safe to leave or the invader gives up and leaves. Compare panicking airplane passengers versus passengers with oxygen mask. Both are in danger, but one has a plan and tools. The other only has panic. Option 2. Escape routes. Remember what I said about not locking everything so well that you can't get out. This is where it matters. Identify at least 2 evacuation routes. Back window with quickly removable panel. Those drawer latches can be opened from inside in seconds, but take minutes from outside. Side door. Any exit that you know but invaders don't. Practice. Seriously, in the middle of the night, chronometrically. If you have children, they need to know the plan, not just in case of fire. But if we hear the alarms. Option 3. Confrontation. Let's be direct. Violence is the last resort. Always. Not because you're an enlightened pacifist, but because violence is unpredictable and you might lose, even armed, even prepared. But if there's no other option, terrain advantage, you know the house. They don't. Noise advantage, you know where the traps are. They trip. Psychological advantage, you're defending your family. They're stealing. I won't give combat instructions because I am not a tactical instructor and you, Ray, not a soldier. But I'll give you information. Pepper spray is legal. Cheap, $25 to $40 and incapacitates without killing. Taser requires proximity. Knives require you to get close. Terrible idea. Firearms require training, license, and psychological readiness to actually use against another human, and most people discover they don't have that psychological readiness when it matters. Choose your tools with honesty about who you really are under pressure. What can kill you? Overconfidence, thinking that because you have a plan, you're invincible. You're not. You're a scared human in a world that collapsed, and the invader, also a scared human, maybe with starving children, maybe truly desperate. I'm not saying to feel sorry, I'm saying to understand the dynamic. Desperate people are unpredictable and unpredictability kills. So here's the final question no one asks. Do you really want to live isolated in a fortress, fighting everyone, until you eventually lose because numbers always win? Or do you want something more sustainable? So here we are. You have doors that a battering ram would have difficulty defeating. Armored windows, primitive alarms that would wake a cemetery, safe room, escape routes. Plans A through D. Your house is, on paper, a fortress, and you're completely alone inside it. Here's what I didn't say before, what I kept leaving in suspense. Solitary security is unsustainable. You can't sleep 24 hours a day. Can't watch all access points simultaneously. Can't get water, look for food, stay mentally sane, and defend an entire property. Humans didn't evolve as solitary creatures. We evolved in tribes. And in the apocalypse, tribes return as the basic unit of survival. So yes, fortify your house. Apply every step I gave here. Make invasion difficult, noisy, dangerous. But while you do this, consider this. Which neighbors do you trust? Which have complementary skills? Who could you, perhaps, organize a shared watch system with? Collective defense. Because here's the final irony. The best defense against looters isn't building higher walls. It's having fewer people looting, because you created a community where more people have access to basic resources, where there's organization instead of chaos, where 6 houses defend themselves together instead of 6 isolated targets being conquered one by one. Your individual bunker might resist a week, maybe a month if you're lucky. An organized community can last indefinitely. But hey, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you're really the ultimate lone wolf, capable of defending your property alone against infinite hordes of the starving. Maybe all these modifications are enough. Maybe you never need to discover whether they are or not. Or maybe you'll discover, on a cold night months after the collapse, that reinforced lock that costs you $150 is worth less than the genuine friendship of the neighbor you ignored. Build your defenses, but don't just build walls. You're still here. Good. That means either you learn something, or you're planning to rob me first when everything collapses. Either way, at least you have a plan now. More than 99% of the population